Well, I'm just on my way home and I'm looking at how incredible the countryside is. So I turned the camera on and I'm holding it, and yes, you shouldn't hold that, but I'm doing about 3 or 4 miles an hour, which is walking speed, and there's no other traffic on the road. So there's my disclaimer. Now look at the beautiful countryside. Get to the top of our little stretch of roadway which we had to put in because we couldn't climb this hill without the road being concreted, so we went ahead and did it. That's what all the controversy was about, because somebody called it driveway. It was never driveway, it was always a barangay road. Man, now look at this, look. And all of that over there, people, we often get people who, subscribers, who say, well, how much land is there? Why don't you cultivate that land? And look at the hill there, and that's cultivated. And it's cultivated by the family that lives over there in that house. Now, that house wasn't always so crowded with trees. It was quite isolated at one time, but look at the incredible view that they have in any direction. That's a very modest little house. We call that house, to recount the story that I've told many times, but we used to pass that house when it had no cladding on it. So the house had been built, but it was framework and it had no cladding on it. Now, the obvious reason for that was that the family who lived within a mile of this place didn't have the finance to be able to do it. So Beth and I passed it a few times, and then we said, why don't we sneak in there with our Superman team while they're not looking, because they were living obviously in the other house that they couldn't afford to move out of. And why don't we go in and clad the house? So we buy the materials and then we'll go in and we'll clad the house in like half a day or a day, and then we'll run away before we get caught. And we thought that was a great idea, and that's why we called it a secret house on the mountains, because we had a secret that we intended to do. Now, in the event, it actually turned out that before we could do that, the family must have found at least the money to put the cladding on. And so the next time we looked, the cladding had already been done, and our little joke, our little positive, practical joke, had been taken away from us. And we've still got these huge heaps of road materials. Fortunately, they did that one to the side, so we didn't have to dig our way through that. So what we did after we discovered that, we went and talked to the family and found out the story. And yes, they'd been able to at least put the cladding on, but the house was nowhere near finished. So we went in with our team and we got some more materials, and we did a little hey, hello, and we did some block work, and we just improved the whole thing on the house, and the family, of course, were very, very happy. And for that one, one of the children used to go into church with us, but I think that she lives now more with her grandmother, or she's going to another school in another area, so we don't see. I always called her Crystal, and only later found out her name was Christine. So a lovely family, lovely kids, and And of course we miss that. We miss Christine. I'm sure some of you are going to groan when I mention this, because oh my god, he's not going to tell that story again, is he? But we always used to look at that valley there, of which we live in a series of valleys like that. We live in hundreds of square miles of this kind of hillside, and it's going through changes all the time. You can see over there, look, there's been some fire quite a time ago. That's where the dirty brown look is coming from, and then the lighter brown is where there is actually corrosion, and these hills are subject to all kinds of changes. Over there, look, this is a favourite spot for, you can see, well, I hope you can see the water, look, and they have these deep holes, and the Carabao, these are the Carabao pools. Carabao is a water buffalo by any other name, and they need to be in water for a lot of the time. So they come not only water, but they, whoops, I'm slipping and sliding, but not only mud. As soon as they get kicked with the mud, then they don't get bothered by the bugs as much, because the bugs can't get to the flesh. See, but now look, I used to stop when Talek used to go on the motorcycle with me a lot. She liked that, and we used to stop here, and I used to talk to the ever silent Talek, who never ever seemed to speak, because she was shy about English. And of course, lazy me, I didn't learn to speak Visayan, but we used to stop, and whether she understood or not, I used to tell her that she would remember these sights and these views. Look at that over there. And then actually you can see Cebu from this place. It's a dark shadow on the horizon. But we would look here, and I would tell her, not that she ever listened, did you ever listen to your mother and father? And I would say, you know, you'll remember this, you know, if you go and live abroad, you'll remember how lucky you were to live in such beautiful countryside. So here we are, just so that you know I'm not exaggerating. Can you see the speedometer? And the speedometer is looking at just a few, that's kilometers, not even miles, kilometers an hour. And here, no mistakes allowed here. There's nothing to stop you from going over the edge, and if you go over the edge you will go roly-poly, and if you haven't got your seatbelt on, that could be an experience you wouldn't want to repeat. But look over there at night on that hill. Let me say, I think on that hill, if I can get my finger pointed in the right direction, my wonky finger, my arthritic finger, and there's a house there, and I think Beth always tells me that that's John's house, way up in the mountains there, and that's on the road that goes to the Village of Hope orphanage. We always joke when we go to the Village of Hope orphanage, because we can actually see where we live, but of course viewed from a different angle we never know which is which. But we always say, oh look, we can see, that's where we live, and there's Nana, and she's waving to us. And again, this is going through this orchard now, but the fruit is palm oil. And of course these sites, I would call it an orchard. I guess it's not called an orchard here, but it's now been very neglected. It was owned by someone, not quite sure, it may have been a mayor, one with money, had owned this. It was, Beth calls it a hacienda, and you can see that this has been carefully plotted, because the trees are all in beautifully set outlines. Look, and sound of my horn because we're going around a blind bend in the hill, and the motorcyclists for some reason think they are the only ones on the road, and they come hurtling round, and we've had a couple that were hurtling a little bit too fast, and they came off. See, look, there's nice straight lines. Now these are nicely comparative to where we built Menzies house and the duplex which we're building at the moment. You can see that there's plenty of sunshine can get through there. When it starts to get more clouded, then it's difficult there, and it becomes a dark place. But you can see now that, as I always say, the lifeless branches that are there, and they're coming down. I always say they look like a witch's gown, ball gown. There's another one. Look, they should be husbanded, they should be taken care of, they should be trimmed so that new life can come, but they're not. But even so, they still yield a certain amount of fruit, and when it's in season, as we pass along this road, which passes for a road, we will see the fruit stacked on the edge, and that's where they'll have gone in, and even in this kind of state they're still producing some kind of fruit. See, look, there's a sadly neglected tree, and more. Look, now under the back seat behind me, I carry a bolo, which was a gift from a friend. It's a nice bolo. I say nice, it's fancy, because it was made in the West. So it's a machete, has a bit of a saw blade on it on one side, and then a straight edge on the other. And I carry that because at times, especially after the big rains, you can see here you can see the future. I'll be chopping these branches down sooner or later, because they go down. If we have any kids in the back, they'll come over, and it's not smooth stuff, it's very rough. Those leaves are very rough, so I would cut those away and throw the branches down the side there. But if you saw videos from a few weeks ago, you'll remember that I had to get out and rake these down, because I think I must have been the first out after the trucks from the city dropped all this material. It's since been tamped right down by the constant traffic. You can see the same there. That big boulder was dropped by them as well. That will weigh about 100 pounds, no question. So moving it will really be down to the heavy machinery that they send in. On this little thing here, can't remember why, but Talik and I came off here. This was just a pathway, and that's where we would have gone had it gone really bad, but we just took a slow motion tumble, not driving very fast, of course. The problem with driving alone on the bike was that if you did come off and you went over and down into an area like that, no one would find you if you were unconscious, and if you were out cold or unable to make it back up to the path, no one would find you. And so it could come to a bad end. Now, here's another house that we can't see that house, but that's not very far. It's not very far from where we are. This is another little steep hill. The buzzing you can hear. I don't have my feet on the controls at all, and the truck, because it's in incline control mode, will take me safely down here at just a few miles an hour, which is what I was doing when I actually started down the hill. Just one of the little things that I use every day, because we're up and down hills, and I use that little luxury every day. Now, of course, I got to put some gas on. I keep threatening that, and I realise it's been 2 years now since we got the Raptor, and we've enjoyed every minute of it, and I should really do a little review of how we've been getting along with the Raptor. I went online and I saw that there are several reviews. The one that I see of the Raptor when I clicked was very much a manufacturer's thing. It was very glitzy, glossy, showing all of the most beautiful things about the Raptor, of which there are many. Now, just as an aside, and talking as we were before about the land being cultivated, it is cultivated, as you can see there. Now, I'm thinking from my city boys viewpoint that is corn. I think it's corn. Now, a lot of this land belongs to a past mayor, as in M-A-Y-O-R, and even on this side as well, these trees belong to the mayor. The Gemelina tree, there's the first Gemelina tree, and there's the next one, and now we're coming up now very soon to where we live, and over there you should be able, at the tip from me, there's a roof that you can see, and that's Manarado's house. And now we're on the road to our house. All of this would not be it would not be improved or maintained by anybody but us. So the last time that we paid for the road to be graded, we paid for the entire thing, even up to Rado's house and up to Oping's house. Now more. Now this here is not owned. It's not owned by Julio, but rather than leave it just lying fallow, he actually does work that. And the usual thing to happen here in the Philippines, in the province, see, this has been turned over as well, but it's not ready for planting yet, is how I'm thinking. And what would happen is, if somebody is willing to cultivate a piece of land in order to bring about a crop, then whoever owns the land does nothing, because he already owns the land, and would simply take a percentage of the yield, which of course is fair. Now all of this here has been utilised and planted by, at some point or other, by Julio. Rado is the one who takes care of the rice fields, and down there you can see that there are tiered rice fields. And now we're on our final stretch of the road that takes us past Julio's little house. That's sort of perched on the edge of the road, between the road and the rice fields. It goes down. From here we've already come around, and so there's Julio's house, and he's put that fence up, and he has little dogs that come out and threaten us with their barking. I think those are chickens over there. But here's the rice fields. They tier right up and round to the side, and then right up on the hill, look, you can see, I don't know whether you can see, it's behind this one, that, let me see, can you, no, you can't see it, I'm pointing to it, but it's not possible. But behind that coconut on the right hand side, behind that and to the top of the hill, is Lena's house. So now go down very steeply to the creek, and this is we put this road in right up to the Barangay Road, and we built this bridge, and this bridge is built pretty good. This will take a 5-ton truck loaded. I designed this, and then at that time my brother-in-law sort of headed the on-site, was the on-site chief for leading the crew to build it, and I did the drawings, and I made the molds for those round piers, and we made a very good job of it. There's a lot of more metal in that, more rebar in that than you would ever think possible. And it actually does take a delivery truck of 3 to 5 tons bringing materials up here, now that we have the road in. Of course we had to put concrete in that part because it just simply wasn't possible to negotiate it. And it comes round here, and this is very steep, and we have to go up, and I'm going to have to go into 4-wheel drive. It must have a load of stuff on the road to get runoff once the rains come, and there will be runoff of soil, making even the concrete slippery. You can feel right now. There's our Little Red. Many of you who were in from the beginning will remember Little Red. And there's my lovely wife is coming to meet me, which is unusual. She's usually up at the house. Honey, why are you looking so fierce? I got a friend of mine you should meet. His name's A. Comb, C-O-M-B. She doesn't think that's funny. Now what, honey?
Give me the camera.
I'm making a video. What do you think I'm doing here? Talking to myself? The dogs love to play a suicide chicken run. That's why she's calling them and telling them to get out of the way. That must mean that we are about 2 feet from the wall, but for breath that's close to knocking the house down. Well, that's my little slow walk. Thanks for being with me.